this top four race. And Man United seem, I say seem, like they're slightly pulling away. They're United are 7 points ahead of Tottenham as it stands right now, basically meaning that they need 3 more wins than Man United to go ahead of them. And at the moment, on performances, I don't see them being able to do that. It feels like a 3-team shootout, in my opinion. I mean, no disrespect to Fulham and no disrespect to Brighton. I think they're going to fade away. I think it's going to be between 3 teams: Spurs, Newcastle, Liverpool, for that final Champions League spot. And of course, the name of the game is winning. The name of the game is picking up points. But it's about getting a run of form together. Liverpool have done that. Liverpool have got a run of form together. 2 games, one of which they were expected not. In fact, people wrote them off for the Merseyside derby and away at Newcastle, and they've picked up maybe points against going against the grain slightly. But when I said on the terrace on Monday night, I think they can go to Newcastle and win, everybody said no chance, no chance, no chance, no chance. I just think that's disrespectful to Liverpool. What Tottenham now need to do is win 2, 3, 4 games on the bounce, because I think Liverpool may do that. I really do think Liverpool have got the capabilities of doing it. Newcastle, listen, once they get this Carabao Cup, maybe the Carabao Cup's been a problem for them. They've been heavily focused on it. Once that's out the way, it'll be full steam ahead for the top 4, 1 game a week, pretty much. Tottenham, they may or may not be in the Champions League still. So they're in the FA Cup still. So they've got a lot more on their plate than what Newcastle are going to have in a week's time. They also have an opportunity this forthcoming weekend to play a game when Newcastle do not. And although games in hand can seem great, points on the board are what matter. And if when Newcastle come back to the Premier League, they're 4 points behind Tottenham, yes, they have 2 games in hand, but then there's pressure not to slip up. Because they lose any of those games in hand, then they're in a little bit of trouble. So a very important win today, a very good performance from Tottenham today, especially in that second half. Young Daniel's here with me now to have his say on the show to talk about his team, Tottenham. What are you saying, Dan? Congratulations on the win. What did you make of the performance?
First of all, I'd like to start off in saying I apologize to Emerson Royale. I apologize. At the same time, though, we saw last season that he could do a job. He was just at the beginning of this season, he was very poor. But he's doing a great job this season, and fair play. I want players in my team to prove me wrong. When I criticize them, I want them to come in and prove me wrong. That's what I want. But in terms of the performance, the first half was more of an even game. But I think in the second half, we took control and we started creating more chances, and we were putting away 2 pretty good chances. When it comes to Son, I was happy we benched him. I was calling for a long time for us to bench him. He came on. He had a point to prove. And he proved it last time that he could do the same thing. I think you have to bench Son. He needs a mental reset. I don't think it's a tactical problem with Son. I think it's more of a confidence problem. I think his confidence is low. You saw it for South Korea in the World Cup. It can't be a tactics problem. Because when he went with South Korea to the World Cup, he was playing the exact same way with different tactics. So for me, it has to be a confidence problem. And I think having him start off on the bench is a mental reset. And I'm happy with the win. I'm happy with the result. And I think we'll get top 4. I'm very confident.
Where's the confidence coming from? Do you think you've got the bit between the teeth now to go on a run, 3, 4, 5 games winning streaks? Do you think you could do that for the first time this season?
Look, I'm not going to sit here and say everything's perfect at this football club, but I do see us going on a win streak. I see us going on. We can do it. The problem is, will we? And I don't think our biggest problem is ourselves. That's the biggest thing. But when I look around us, when I look at the teams that are competing with us, like Liverpool, they've got massive problems. Newcastle, they're going on a bit of not a losing, but they haven't been able to pick up 3 points in ages. I think in the last 7 games, they've got like 1 game that they've got a win, 1 game that got a loss, and I think the rest of them were draws. So I think the teams around us have proved that they have to improve massively to be able to get top 4. And then the teams around, other than those 2 teams, are like teams that I don't think they've got the experience to be able to compete for top 4. I'm talking about teams like Brighton, Fulham. So I think if you look at the teams around us, I think, as you said earlier on the show, I agree with you. Arsenal, City, and Man United are locked in for top 4. But then the other teams that are fighting for the top 4 in the bottom 4th spot, I think we've got the best chance, and I think we'd be the favorites. And I back my team to get that 4th spot.
And fair enough, I get that. Question: should you play more games with Antonio Conte not at the stadium?
Man, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it's an Antonio Conte problem. I think it's just the players. When you got that new manager and the new manager bounce, I think it's more of that thing that they've got a new set of new manager, new breath of air. But I don't think that if you appoint Christian Stellini for a long period of time, I don't think we're gonna go on and win the league or something like that. I think we've won like every game we've had under him, but I still think that Antonio Conte is the man to take us forward. And if you back him and you get in the right players, you see how much better we play when we've got a actual functional wing back, and that's only one of them. In the summer when we get Destiny Udogie and we've got two wing backs that actually work, in being Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie, we'll be cooking. And I truly believe that. Truly believe that in this Antonio Conte system, you need wing backs. That's the main function of the system. And people are wondering why it's not working. It's because we don't have good wing backs. Also, it also costs us to play out of the back. But over time, I think that can improve, getting center backs that can play out of the back. But I think there's better things to come from Tottenham. And I don't think Antonio Conte being out is going to be the massive problem. And I think Christian Salini, if he was appointed as permanent manager, I don't think it'd make much of a difference. At the end of the day, he's assistant manager. So he's playing with the same tactics.
I get that. And look, I don't think it's anything to do with him not being at the ground, really. It's a little bit sort of tongue in cheek, if you were. But yeah, look, I think the thing with Spurs, it's about putting that run of form together. And you don't need the best run of form, because I think being in a top 4 race by definition means there's slight issues with consistency. Otherwise, you'd be in a
Title
top
race.
title race as opposed to the top 4 race. And you've definitely got a chance. And I think you mentioned it earlier on. I think dropping Son was really important. He's been so poor for the vast majority of the season. And just because he come on and scored, I wouldn't start him in the next game either. I think what you kind of
Really?
need to do. No, I wouldn't, because I don't think it's enough. Listen, coming on and scoring, he came on before and got a hat trick and went straight back to stinking the place up. I think what you have to do as a club, and this is where Graham Potter's made mistakes, is you almost need to turn around to Richarlison and say, listen, the next 3 league games, irrespective of how you play or goal, unless you drop stinkers, you're gonna start. So
I wouldn't start
relax.
Richarlison. I don't want to see Richarlison at left wing anymore. He's not a left winger. Play him at striker. I'm tired of seeing him at left wing. Play
Okay, no,
Dan Juma.
I
Play
get
Dan
that.
Juma.
Okay, I'm just giving you an example. We don't need to
All
be
right.
bogged down on who comes in. The point I'm making is I think you need to say to a couple of players, you are going to get opportunities, you're going to get chances, and like you're not just going to be kicked out of this team after one game. Or if someone comes on and scores, he isn't just going to be straight back in the team again. You need to try and build a bit of confidence and chemistry with other players. Graham Potter's made this mistake by he's had this new group of players since the January window for 4 games, and every game there's mass overhauls. You're not creating any new relationships, and Son's been poor the majority of the season. Twice now he's been benched, and he's come on and done well. I would say, listen, brilliant, well done. You're going to do that for the next couple of games. And if you keep proving me wrong, then you're going to be back in the starting lineup. Throwing him straight back in again now, you run the risk of it going backwards again. So I just think there needs to be a little bit more bravery from Antonio Conte. Obviously, Emerson Royale, you've mentioned, Pedro Porro not being able to get into that first team. That's great to have that kind of competition. And this is the difference. Now, it's not like Son's performance is lifted up when Richarlison returned from injury and Danjuma came in. He stunk the place out still. So you've got to create that competition in the training ground and for the first team to create brilliance on the football pitch, I think, personally.
Exactly. And we haven't had competition at this football club in a long time. You look at the way we go out and get transfers, we almost look at it like, all right, our starting 11 is set, and we're looking for players that if that player in the starting 11 gets injured, he can come in and we won't be in a crisis. Like Fraser Forster, we needed somebody to come in and compete for Hugo Lloris's spot. What do?
Yeah.
We got a goalkeeper that's older than Hugo Lloris. We need somebody to come in and compete for the starting 11. And I'm so happy we signed Pedro Porro, because that's what that exactly does. And it also pushes Emerson Royale to play better. But Terry, by the way, I also wanted to say, when somebody put in the comment about VAR and a refereeing, they weren't talking about the offsides. They were talking about a handball decision.
Yeah, no, I get that. Man United had one very similar the other day. Chelsea had one last week that was very similar.
From
And they're
West
not
Ham again.
they're not being given. And that's why this one wasn't. They're basically saying if somebody's falling over, the hand that's going to stop them from hitting the ground, they're allowed to put down. If the ball hits it, it's not handball. It's a stupid rule, because I think both of these were handball. I think they were both handballs. What I'm saying is players are exploiting the law. They know that they can drop their hand down and stop it, but as long as they land on the hand afterwards, it's not going to be given. It's
Exactly.
it's not VAR. VAR is doing nothing wrong here. It's the laws being exploited. It's one of those laws that's a bad law. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the concussion one. Like, I understand taking protocols for concussions, but then teams are going to be 1-0 up in a final, and they're going to all go down and be grabbing their head. It's like a law that you can exploit. And like
Well, we saw this in the first game between Man United and Arsenal this year. Gabriel Jesus did it. He fell. He kind of banged his head a little bit and then held his head. I've seen dozens and dozens of players do that since. They fall over, they see there's a counter attack, and they hold their head, so the game gets stopped. And again, people will always exploit these rules, and it's why the law came in that if a medical team come on, the player has to leave the pitch until he gets invited back on. That was to stop people from play acting, but it's never really done that. Young Daniel, I appreciate you coming on, mate, and having your say. Top man. Thank you very much indeed.